Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. Today I actually am in a really cool spot. It's one of the state parks by my house. We can get a little bit of a view of what I got going on here. It's one of the coolest parts about living in Colorado. So, all the way around like that. Now I gotta figure out exactly how I had this thing again. I think it was something somewhere about the lines of there. Seems good. So, today, I wanted to talk about a video or a concept that Dr. Albert Ellis talked about quite frequently in his books, and I think it needs a little bit deeper of an understanding when it comes to how important getting under our anger, irrational beliefs, and understandably so when you're chronically suffering, and how it can keep us stuck, and the kind of what I would like to talk about, the grim reality of anger. But before we go any further, if you could please subscribe to the channel. There's great videos going up all the time, great information on different fears and our experiences and how we overcome them, IGTVs by Rob quite frequently and stuff like that. So I've talked about this book before, and this is the book right here. This is one of Albert Ellis's anger books. It's called How to Control Your Anger Before It Controls You. And this book was a real big stepping stone for me in getting under my irrational beliefs. Now, the first book on the reading list, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable, is a really, really important book and really does play into that. So while using the REBT method and looking at unconditional self-life and other acceptance, those are just correlated into this book. It's still the same outlook on life about getting under our irrational beliefs around anger. So I have on this piece of paper, I basically have an outline, because I obviously don't have my whiteboards with me, of how I'm going to structure it. So the first thing I want to talk about is why we hold on to anger. And Albert Ellis said in his one quote that really stuck with me, and Rob and I have talked about this, it's anger is one of the only negative emotions that humans want to hold on to, and because there's a lot of irrational beliefs that anger can get them what they want. So when you're in here, there's all sorts of windy roads. So there goes one, there goes two, there goes three. So cars with just really loud engines love to rip around in here. I would do the same exact thing. So why we hold on to anger and how anger basically is sorry about that. So why we hold on to anger and basically, the irrational beliefs surrounding anger. So at the core of anger, so we know that anger is an unhealthy emotion that really doesn't get people what they want. And we have a lot of beliefs in our society that being angry and showing anger towards people has benefit. Anger has benefit and is rational in very few moments in time. He talks about overthrowing a dictatorship or a bureaucracy, but you still actually wouldn't need to be angry about it. Maybe psyching yourself up in some sort of a competitive event, but you still wouldn't need to do that. So the irrational beliefs surrounding anger are never ending. So what are some of the irrational beliefs surrounding anger? They're usually, this must not happen to me. That person must not do that to me. Life should not be this unfair. So it's really a combination of conditional self, other, and life acceptance. And what we see today in social media and in political debates and religious debates and all the real hot topics where rational thinking doesn't really come through. A lot of people just think very rationally, and they fire a lot of answers off without thinking about what they're talking about. And this isn't to say that there's anything irrational about, you can believe what you want, you can have faith, you can be religious, you can believe in certain types of financial situations. But when you look at people and the way they discuss things and the way they get angry with each other, there's a very clear belief that that person must listen to them. If you didn't have that belief, you could disagree with someone in a very calm manner, how I'm talking right now, and it would never actually affect you in the ways that you think it does. So the first thing I want to talk about, besides the overview like I just did, is the grim reality of anger. So anger, and I did a video called The Myths of Anger. So anger really doesn't get us what we want. So the biggest problem with anger, I have my Daisy mug, Erica, for my coffee, my last coffee of the day. I think it's about 3 o'clock here. A little bit later than I usually have coffee. But, so, anger really doesn't get people what they want. So I like to add in some scientific stuff. Usually when people are really angry, they don't really use their prefrontal cortex that much. And your prefrontal cortex is the most just developed area of your brain over the last, say, 100,000 years, and it's where executive decision comes from. So people that make really rash decisions and think on impulse don't really have a lot of great prefrontal cortex function, as you could say. I think that is important to talk about, because it is important to learn things too. It is important to learn about OCD and how it works. You don't need to understand it fully, but there is some background to understanding how it works in a sense. And if you don't have a really good understanding of OCD, it's really hard to get through some of the spikes and the mishaps, because you'll constantly be questioning instead of thinking to yourself, oh, that's, I'm just going to go forward and wear this like an uncomfortable coat. So anger does not get you what you want in many ways. You act very rash. You act out of impulse. You basically, when you watch people and the way they talk and how they basically attack people, that person almost never attacks back in a calm manner. It's almost always assertive or extreme defensiveness and stuff like that. And you could see this all the time. And this is really important to cover, because the biggest myths around anger is that anger gets people what they want. And this is talked about in one of the myths I did in a different video. So the ABCs of anger and how to basically discover your irrational beliefs around anger. So in OCD related, some of the angry, especially when you're suffering with a lot of physical manifestations and anxiety, it can be really easy to get kind of just on edge. And usually the belief underneath that is, this must not be happening to me, or this spike should not be happening to me. I have a good understanding of OCD. All the moderators or anyone further in recovery have definitely fallen into that belief. Some people, it does display anger or rage. Some people, it just lies in frustration, which is a healthy emotion to Dr. Albert Ellis, because it pushes you to getting things of what you want. But when you're really rageful or very angry, it doesn't get you the results you want, because you act very impulsively. That's the main thing about it, and that's really important to talk about. But because there's so much anger or irrational beliefs in this society, and so many people acting in angry ways, a lot of people don't want to give that emotion up. But if you were to sit down and analyze all of the situations in your life where you've been angry and seen the results, and tried to mentally compare them to what would happen if you wouldn't have acted that way — this happened to me a lot — you might not get the results you wanted, but it will definitely be much better for yourself. When you're very angry at someone, you're also not accepting them in an unconditional manner. You're accepting them in a conditional manner. And this is what we see all the time. This is just really, really common. So with the ABCs of anger, as we know, as humans, we have goals, which is to stay alive and be reasonably happy throughout our life. And then we have activating events. So this is, a car crash or getting OCD. And then the psychoanalytic or the Freudian method, what would happen is a lot of the emphasis was put on the activating event. And then we realized that damning your parents or damning your situation doesn't actually get you anywhere. It's actually really bad for OCD. So, there's a lot of people that have people looking into their pasts to find something out, and that's really going to keep you stuck. It's about accepting where you are right now in recovery, accepting you have OCD, as Momin spoke to me about a couple days ago, and then moving forward, which I will cover in another video, either tonight or tomorrow. So the belief we have, again, is the musts and the shoulds, that this situation must not happen to me. I must understand OCD. That person must not cut me off in the car. And then you basically can look at the situations, like for myself, and not every single belief, if it's not the core belief, it's not chronically latched or stuck, you probably don't need to unwind that belief. A lot of people believe, as I touched about, like engaging in your thoughts. If you have a core fear that's been latched for 5 years, you're going to need to look into that core fear. You're not looking into the thoughts that come on every second moment. We're looking into the main core fear. Like me, when I had somatic OCD really bad, it was a thought I was going to be stuck forever and it ruining my life. I had to look into that fear. No amount of exposures undid it for me. This is very, very common in a lot of chronic OCD cases, because a lot of people will just say, well, do ERP and go on your way. And that's not as simple as that for a lot of us, which we know. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is basically, I titled it learning to relax and changing your behavior in the moment, and how that basically can benefit you. So if you're a very, very angry, if a person with a lot of angry irrationalities and demands on people like I had, there was an extended period of time. I'm just going to use me. Not everyone's like this. I had angry emotions for almost 2 years. At least probably 15 times a day, like when I was on the road or talking to my friends. And even when I started holding my tongue back, because there is good, like with anger, there is going to be times when you're very frustrated and you might feel anger build up inside you a little bit, but it's good to sit on those emotions and not act on them, and it's going to be very uncomfortable. Kirsty did a really good video talking about how anger can become its own little theme, and I think that's really important because people don't want to feel anger. It's a sensation for a lot of us. It's an uncomfortable, like pent up energy. So it is about sitting with that. The further you go along in your recovery from, your anger irrationalities, and this doesn't just play into OCD, this is just all factors in life. When I see people get really angry in debates, or my friends, or they're awfulizing stuff about like their coffee size being wrong, they're really kind of doing it to themselves. And it's really sad to see because we're not really taught this as humans. And we're really fortunate to have OCD in the way that the recovery journey can help us teach us things in ways that other people might not have the ability to see. So there is a lot of positives to the OCD recovery journey. And I do want to touch on this because people may watch this and ask, how does this relate to OCD? Well, people with OCD tend to be very angry at people who don't understand OCD when we don't need them to. We would just prefer them to. So that's definitely how anger plays in. I see a lot of people get really angry with each other in the Facebook group when they don't understand. So it could be very easy for me to get angry at some of you watching this because you're much, not nearly as far in the recovery journey, and I was there where you were. Well, that's not going to do me any good. It's also not going to do you any good because then, you'll probably be resentful towards me and it just won't go anywhere. So, if you want to yell at me on the Facebook group, you're more than welcome to. It's not going to bother me. So learning how to relax is key. You don't want to have distraction techniques because we know with OCD, and this book isn't geared towards OCD, but there are some really good benefits from it. So in the beginning, when I felt the really big anger beliefs, my irrationalities, like Erica interrupted me when I was working, I would get very anxious. I would just let that play out, and just learn how to sit with that discomfort. This is why we talk about wearing anxiety like an uncomfortable coat. I really don't think that can be overlooked. I think that's probably, in my opinion, the most important part of the OCD recovery journey besides looking at your core fears. Because the majority of the journey, you might be really uncomfortable, even up until the end for a lot of people. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just part of the OCD reality of the journey, and it can play over into a lot of things in your life. The last part I want to talk about is accepting yourself. I don't, at this point in time, at least, I don't say I never have, because you never know what can happen. I don't really have a lot of shame or regret type fears, but there definitely have been times where I've looked back on situations and said to myself, man, I wish I didn't do that. But you could think about that and wish you didn't do it, but it's not really going to bring you anywhere. And that's actually, when you say to yourself, I wish I didn't do that, a lot of times you could say that statement and still accept yourself unconditionally, but most people are not. When most people say stuff like, I wish I didn't do that, they start ruminating and then being regretful. And Kirsty just talked about that rumination is a very big part of most people's lives. It's not just OCD, but we really put emphasis on it because we have a disorder. So this is really, really, really important to talk about. And I think that, there was a bee by me. And I think that accepting yourself is one of the biggest parts of recovery. And Momin sent me a voice message on WhatsApp 2 days ago talking about this, and I really did want to talk about that because I really didn't accept myself for who I am until very, very recently. And I've been working on recovery for 15 months. So not everyone's going to take that long to start developing unconditional self-acceptance. I know Sadie said it took her over a year to really actually begin to sort of click. So this is something, the reality of what we have to talk about. It's not that it might take you a year, it might take you 2-3 months to start grasping it in a more clear manner, but you're not going to accept yourself and your anger overnight. It's just not going to happen. It would be really cool if it did, but it's not going to. So for most people, it's not a reality. And this is the problem with the social media stuff, where people say, you see these posts and they're like, well, just be positive. And we own that positive mindset is very important and stuff like that. But we make it out to be too easy. People that are very angry and have a lot of irrational beliefs about conditional acceptance of others in life, they almost never get over that. A, because they don't have the tools. And if they did, they probably would see better results. And B, they just don't want to give it up. So Albert Ellis said that after 70 years of working with people with anger issues, and it wasn't the most comfortable thing for me. I was definitely a hot-headed person. I've gotten a lot of screaming arguments and stuff like that, and I've never once said to myself oh, it's because of the environment I grew up in, even though there was a lot of yelling. That's cool and everything, but it has nothing to do with me right now. And you could say to yourself it shaped you to who you are, which definitely is true. and there's definitely cultural environmental backgrounds leading me to where I am right now. But I also have the choice to go forward and change that, no matter what anyone tells you, because that's the basis of REBT. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll do one more turnaround of the view, because it's really awesome. So I really like coming up here. There's my car down there, if you could see it. My paper's moving. So, and you can go all up around here, and this park goes all the way around. So it's really cool. That's, you know, coming out here is very, it's very relaxing. Almost as relaxing as my bright blonde eyebrows and my red beard, which is hilarious. Erica's not a fan of that. Don't care. So thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and have a great day.